Imagine 200,000 horse archers who could fire arrows backward at full gallop, who could cover 100 miles in a single day, who made entire civilizations flee in terror before a single arrow was shot. March 453 A.D. One man's mysterious death on his wedding night saved Western civilization when Attila the Hun drowned in his own blood, causing an empire that controlled more territory than Alexander the Great to collapse in mere months. This is the story of how a barbarian warlord brought Rome, master of the known world, for 1,000 years to its knees through psychological warfare, superior tactics, and sheer terrifying mobility. By the end of this, you'll understand how composite bows that could punch through armor at 300 meters made Rome's legendary legions irrelevant, why the Battle of the Catalonian Plains produced 100,000 casualties in 6 hours, and the shocking reason a desperate Roman princess invited the apocalypse by sending her ring to history's most feared conqueror. Think about those numbers: 200,000 warriors speaking 50 languages, moving as one organism, destroying cities that had stood for centuries, making emperors pay 700 pounds of gold annually just to delay their own destruction. But here's what makes this story truly insane. Attila's empire collapsed so fast after his death that historians still debate whether he was assassinated, and his burial location, a triple coffin of gold, silver, and iron hidden beneath a diverted river, has never been found despite centuries of searching. How did nomads without a single permanent city defeat history's greatest empire? The answers lie in the bloodiest decade of the 5th century. Picture Rome in the 5th century, an empire dying from 1,000 cuts split in two and bleeding gold. The Western Empire could barely defend Italy, let alone frontiers stretching from Britain to North Africa. The Eastern Empire, safe behind Constantinople's massive walls, 12 meters high with 192 towers, grew wealthy, while its western cousin withered into economic collapse. Into this decaying world came the Huns from somewhere in the Asian steppes, and nobody knew their origins. They appeared like a plague, driving entire peoples before them. Gothic refugees spoke of demons on horseback who could shoot arrows backward while galloping at full speed, whose composite bows crafted from wood, horn, and sinew could punch through Roman chainmail at 300 meters. Roman soldiers trained to fight in tight phalanx formations had never faced anything like mobile warfare perfected over centuries on the steppes. The man they called Scourge of God earned his title. Contemporary accounts describe Attila as short and broad-chested, with a large head, deep-set eyes that seemed to see through men's souls, and a thin beard. He dressed simply in leather and wool, while his lieutenants wore gold-threaded silk ate from wooden plates, while others used golden vessels and spoke in a quiet voice that somehow commanded absolute obedience from 200,000 warriors. Then there's Flavius Aetius, the last Roman who spent his youth as a hostage among the Huns, learned their tactics, their language, their weaknesses. He'd used that knowledge to become Rome's final competent general, playing a chess game with civilization itself as the stakes. By 447 AD, Constantinople was paying 700 pounds of gold annually just to keep Attila away, the equivalent of 50,000 soldiers' yearly wages, enough to fund schools, repair aqueducts, pay armies instead, buying temporary peace from horse-mounted terror. And then there's Princess Honoria, the desperate woman whose personal crisis would trigger continental apocalypse. Caught in an affair with her chamberlain Eugenius, who was promptly executed, she faced forced marriage to Senator Flavius Bassus Herculanus, a safe choice 3 times her age. Imprisoned in her own palace, desperate and enraged, she made a decision that would cost hundreds of thousands of lives. She sent a letter to Attila containing 16 words that would justify 4 years of destruction. Help me escape this marriage, and I offer myself and my inheritance to you. She included her ring as proof of authenticity. But here's what Roman historians tried to hide under Roman law. As the emperor's sister, she actually had a legal claim to half the Western Empire as her dowry. When Attila received that ring, his advisors reported he smiled for the first time in months. Here was legal justification wrapped in gold for everything he'd planned. He immediately sent ambassadors to Ravenna, demanding recognition of his betrothal to Honoria and delivery of his bride with her dowry half the Western Empire's territory. The death of King Ruga in 434 A.D. had put his nephews Attila and Bled on the Hunnic throne. Joint rule was traditional among the Huns, but these brothers were fundamentally incompatible. Bled, the elder, loved wine, women, and gold, the pleasures of conquest. Attila studied maps, counted arrows, and calculated logistics. For 11 years, they maintained an uneasy partnership that terrorized half of Europe through systematic brutality. But in 445 A.D., Bled died during a hunting trip. Roman sources disagree on details. Some say assassination, others imply poison at a feast. What's certain, Attila emerged as sole ruler, and his first act was purging Bled's supporters in a bloodbath that shocked even hardened Hun warriors. Let me explain the Hun military machine, because it revolutionized warfare in ways Europe wouldn't match for centuries. Every Hun male learned to ride before he could walk properly. By age 5, he was shooting arrows from horseback at targets. By 15, he could put 3 arrows in flight before the first one hit its target. Their composite bows, made from layers of horn and sinew, generated 160 pounds of draw weight, nearly double an English longbow. At 300 meters, a Hun arrow could penetrate Roman chainmail. At 100 meters, it could punch through shields and the men holding them. But here's what made them truly terrifying: beyond individual skill, speed and coordination that defied Roman comprehension. A Hun army could cover 100 miles in a single day, 3 times what Roman legions managed, because each warrior rode with 5 spare horses. They fought in decimal units, tens forming hundreds, hundreds forming thousands. Signals from horns and flags created battlefield coordination Romans couldn't match. They'd feign retreat, drawing enemies into pursuit, then wheel around with practiced precision and annihilate them with arrow storms so thick they blocked the sun. In 441 A.D., the brothers launched their first major campaign against the Eastern Empire with timing that revealed strategic genius. Eastern Roman armies were fighting Vandals in Africa, leaving the Balkans exposed. The Huns crossed the frozen Danube in winter when nobody expected attack and systematically destroyed every city in their path. Viminacium fell first, its population enslaved. Then Margus Singidunum, modern Belgrade and Sirmium. The pattern was always the same, and deliberately terrorizing, appear suddenly without warning, demand immediate surrender, then assault with overwhelming force, regardless of answer. Survivors reported clouds of arrows so thick they blocked midday sun. When cities fell, adult males were killed systematically, women and children, enslaved for profit buildings, burned to ash to prevent rebuilding. The psychological warfare was deliberate and sophisticated. Refugees fleeing ahead of Hun armies spread panic faster than Hun cavalry could ride. By the time Attila's forces arrived at a city, half the population had already fled, taking their wealth and skills. By 443 A.D., with Roman armies finally recalled from African campaigns, Emperor Theodosius I sued for humiliating peace. The Treaty of Anatolius tripled the annual tribute to 2,100 pounds of gold plus 6,000 pounds in arrears. Rome also agreed to return all Hun fugitives, effectively signing their death warrants. But the 447 A.D. campaign showed the new Attila operating without his brother's restraining influence. He didn't just raid for plunder, he aimed to cripple the Eastern Empire permanently. The Udus River battle saw Romans outnumbered 3-1. When they broke under arrow storms, Attila's cavalry pursued relentlessly for 3 days, cutting down stragglers. Over 100 cities burned in the Balkans,